good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining the call today. I'm Ryan Bickerton, and I'm pleased to introduce the latest edition of the Security Middle East webinars series. Today, we're covering a very current and relevant topic that sits at the intersection between security, safety, and cybersecurity. And I'm delighted to be joined by experts from Zenitel, who are going to be exploring the importance of strengthening cybersecurity in mission-critical communication systems and how organizations can strive to protect their communication infrastructure, meet global standards, and of course, stay resilient against ever-evolving cyber threats. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce our speakers today. We've got Rahul Ramachandran, who is the Techno Solutions Manager at Zenitel's Middle East office. Rahul brings over 12 years of experience in life safety and critical communications, holds a bachelor's degree in engineering, and is also a UAE civil defense licensed engineer specializing in life safety system design. So Rahul, thank you for being here with us today and looking forward to hearing more from you. We also have Sri Sutarsan, who is the Vice President of Marketing at Zenitel. And Sri brings almost 20 years of experience to the table in the areas of research and development, product management, sales, and marketing. And Sri specializes in supporting global brands in defining vision and strategy for technology investments. Again, Sri, thanks for joining us. And I think you're going to be getting us started today. So let me hand over to you. Please get the presentation underway, and I will be back for polls and for questions throughout the presentation.
Thank you very much for the great introduction, Ryan, and thanks for giving it a go with our names. I know it's not the easiest, so yeah, well done. And thanks for joining the webinar today. So in today's webinar, as Ryan mentioned, we are going to cover an important topic. It's about the importance of cybersecurity for critical communication system. So let's get started. So let me give you a quick overview of what we will be covering in the next 45 minutes. We will start by defining what we mean by critical communication, especially for those who joined the call today, who has never worked in the critical communication sector. So we will define that one as a first step, and then we will move into sort of understanding some of the trend as well as the cybersecurity risk landscape. And after we have spoken about the trends and the risk landscape, we will talk about how Zenitel is uniquely positioned within this cybersecurity space, particularly in the critical communication, the landscape. Here, my colleague Rahul will get into more of a specifics into the cybersecurity features, particularly our voice alarm portfolio called Wipedia. And then we will close the session by sharing our perspective on how the cybersecurity landscape is likely to evolve. We will share our view on that towards the end of this session. So with this information out of the way, let's get the session started now. As I mentioned, when we talk about critical communication solutions, we are referring to a bunch of technologies here. First and foremost, it is the voice alarm and other broadcasting technologies. You may have seen them all around airports, train station, or other places such as hospitals and schools. Their primary purpose is to deliver critical announcements and alerts in case of an emergency, such as a fire evacuations or an active shooting situation in a school. In addition, they are also being used for other non-safety applications, such as security reminders at an airport. You hear that all the time, please do not leave luggage and those kind of stuff. Or, you use the same technology also for sending out schedule announcements. For example, at a train station, you hear all the time information regarding the train arrivals and departures. So that's kind of the first piece of technology, which is part of the critical communication system. And then the second part is the emergency call points, or sometimes known as the SOS pole. So some of you may familiar with these poles. It can be either red or yellow in color. You see them along the roadsides, maybe in tunnels, or in some cases in large campuses and universities as well. These are the communication points allow anyone in distress to reach help quickly, even when there is no mobile network. For example, inside the tunnels, less likely to have mobile network, so you have this emergency communications point that you can use it for reaching out to emergency services such as ambulance or police. And the third one is are more telephones, or I call it operational telephones. They also play an important role in supporting operational continuity in areas such as you see in this image, industrial plant. Also, you have a lot of use cases for operational telephone in other settings such as healthcare facilities, healthcare or hospitals. For example, a nurse in the emergency ward should be able to call for additional medical staff help using these telephones. And then finally, it's the two-way radios, technologies that might be familiar to you, such as GSMR or Tetra radios. They are still one of the most essential tool for first responders, security teams, and maintenance personnel. I mean, this particularly useful because it offers the mobility that other technology cannot offer. So the combination of these three technologies serves three main purposes. At the most fundamental level, these systems exist to safeguard people. For example, if there is a fire inside the building, or it could be a fire inside a tunnel, the building owner or the security system owner should be able to evacuate the people and the staff to a safer locations. So they use technologies such as voice alarm system to do so. But there are also other applications such as, especially in the US, for example, you have this real problem of active shooter situations. So in those cases, you need to have a solid communication technology that they can use it for communication to outside the schools, or maybe police or ambulance services and so on. So the first and foremost, it's about safeguarding the people. And the second role of the critical communication system is to provide security of the properties and asset. Probably the most widely used use case where audio is primarily used for surveillance purpose. For example, if someone is jumping over the fence of your building, then you can detect that person using video analytics. But then audio piece is the one actually giving you the ability to talk to that person and alert them and hoping that they will leave the property. And then finally, beyond safety and security, critical communication also provides business continuity. Just to give you an example, in a factory setting, for example, the line manager should be able to coordinate the maintenance work in case of, let's say, a machine broke or something. So they use the telephones that you have for each production line to be able to communicate to the workers who is at the production line. So they play an important role, to maintain the business continuity. And therefore, for example, if one production line goes down, there will be a huge impact on the financial side of things. So you need to have these operational technologies such as telephones and whatnot to be able to communicate during those kind of incidents. So due to this criticality of these technologies, the availability requirement of the communication technologies are very, very high, So they need to be always available. So when you design a critical communication system, not only you want to have multiple points of redundancy, which is part of the system design. But what we have seen lately, the system owners put quite a lot of effort into making that system cyber resilient, so that they reduce risk of losing the communication system from a cyber attack or non-cyber attack. So this is just a bit of background on what the critical communication system is and what are some of the key requirements that you have for the critical communication system. And, as I mentioned, cybersecurity is an important part of the critical communication system because you need to have the system that's up and running. You cannot afford to lose the communication system because of a cybersecurity. With that background, I want to spend a couple of minutes on this particular slide, IT versus OT. For those who are not familiar with this term, IT stands for information technology, and that is all about data. It's about storing the data, processing the data, and keeping it secure. So the typical system which are part of the IT system is like your network switches, wireless routers, cloud infrastructures, and CRM system and ERP systems. And IT systems kind of, have data, primarily data from your projects, from your customers and whatnot. OT, or the operational technologies, on the other hand, these are the systems that control and monitor physical devices as well as processes, such as, a production line, for example, at a factory. Or even, some, like electricity grid, for example, they are also part of the OT systems. So typically you will see SCADA system is part of OT system, video surveillance, access control system is also part of OT system. And one important thing to highlight is actually the critical communication technologies that we spoke earlier. They are also part of the operational technology. One of the key difference when it comes to these two technology, the cybersecurity is equally important for both IT system and OT system. But the primary objective of the cybersecurity is slightly different between IT and the OT system. As I mentioned, CRM and ERP is part of the IT system. That means that you hold a lot of confidential customer informations. So the primary focus of IT cybersecurity is actually confidentiality. So you want to make sure that the data that you hold from your customers, your suppliers, kept confidential. No one will have access to that one. So for example, regulations such as GDPR is more related to the IT security. And the objective of the OT security is slightly different. The primary objective is there, even though, maintaining confidentiality is important for OT security, but the most critical thing for OT security is actually the operational continuity. For example, you have the national electrical grid, which is part of the OT system, as I mentioned. You cannot go without electricity even for a few seconds. So system availability is a critical requirement for OT system. So focus on the cybersecurity within OT to make sure that the system is protected from cyber threat, that, potentially could harm the system availability. So as I mentioned, since critical communication, like, voice alarm system is part of the OT system, the system availability of that is critical. Now that we have defined what is critical communication, let's look at some of the key trends within the cybersecurity and critical communication and some of the risk landscape that we see here. First and foremost, the digitalization. So whether we like it or not, digitalization is happening everywhere, and it's not exactly new, and it's certainly not unique to the communication sector either. But what is really interesting to see how it's transforming the physical security industry as a whole. Over the last few years, what we have seen a real shift from isolated and standalone system to more integrated and unified security system. So instead of having separate technologies, each serving their own purpose, customers are now connecting them to gain a better awareness of their properties and surroundings and so on. For example, just to make it real, for example, if a microphone is detecting a glass break, as an example, then the operator can verify that using cameras, using the same terminal, by using a single unified terminal. And definitely, I mean, without a doubt, digitalization brings, a lot of benefits to security system owners. There is also the other side of to these benefits. When we connect more devices and systems, we also expose them to the cyber world. And by doing that, of course, it brings new risk as well. So for example, in the past, tampering with the voice alarm system meant that you need to have physical access to be able to tamper it. But, in the world, in today with IP connectivity, an attacker could potentially reach that same system remotely anywhere from the world. So essentially, yes, digitalization brings incredible advantages, but it also demands a stronger and smarter approach to cybersecurity, because you should be able to not only limit the physical access, but also be ready for any attacks coming remotely through the IP network. The another interesting side effect of being part of the connected system is that attackers use audio as a gateway to gain insight into other systems. Very often, communication systems are integrated with other systems such as video management or access control system. So let's take an example. At the door entry, you have the intercoms. Very often, they are connected with other systems such as access control or video surveillance system. Even though the main attack point may not be audio, they use audio as a gateway to getting into the other system and operate, for example, open doors or spy on the cameras which is connected to the intercom. We have seen in the recent years there are lots of incidents, as you can see on the screen, where the hackers got access to the door entry intercom and then be able to open doors or even eavesdrop conversation from the intercom. The another important topic that I want to highlight here as part of the risk landscape is about the attack surface. So now for the context who are not familiar with this term, when I say attack surface, we are talking about all the possible ways someone could gain unauthorized access to a system. For example, if you have a server and if your HTTP port, which is not secured, of course, if the HTTP port is open, then that will be an attack point. So unlike most of the IT systems that you see on the left-hand side, like servers and switches, they are usually tucked away in a lock rooms. Security and communication products lie out in the open because they are designed to be accessible. They are being installed in public areas or public, walls and poles and whatnot. So literally anyone can walk up to the intercom, anyone can walk up to a voice alarm system, and then potentially they can disconnect an Ethernet cable from an IP speaker or maybe a camera. And then there is a potential for them to inject malicious code or maybe replace the device altogether and then plug it back in. they can do all of these things within a matter of seconds. So this way, by exposing the devices physically to, attackers, you're increasing the attack surface and therefore making it more vulnerable than, let's say, an IT system which is locked away. So with that, I want to play this video, and I hope that you guys can hear.
Wait. It is infant.
Hi, this is Elon Musk. Welcome to Palo Alto, the home of Tesla engineering. You know, they say money can't buy happiness, and yeah, okay. I guess that's true. God knows I've tried. But it can buy a Cybertruck, and that's pretty sick, right? Right? I'm so alone.
It's real. Yeah, that's all I can do.
So, just wanted to play that video, and you can see that the potential for someone is tapping into a voice alarm system or broadcasting system and making, announcements or maybe completely stopping it. Of course, this has a reputational damage. If you're operating a train station or if you're operating an airport, imagine the possibility of someone is remotely attacking your broadcasting and making some false announcements. Imagine the chaos that they are going to cause. So with that, I'm going to now pass the screen to my colleague Rahul. He is going to take us through some of the good stuff of what Zenitel is doing when it comes to the new the voice alarm system that we have.
Thanks for that, Sri. Thank you for the introduction and going over the first couple of topics and segments there. And sorry, Rahul, I think just before we head into the third segment, which will be led by you, I'll just launch the first poll that we have. So if the audience members can please share their thoughts and answered in this. So we've got 3 questions which cover, your general understanding of the term critical communications, how you integrate and consider communication systems within your projects, and then also what drives the decision making there. It's quite interesting, quite a broad range of answers from the audience members. It's clear that critical communication covers everything from any system ensuring safety, security, operational continuity to PAVA systems and emergency intercoms. In terms of where communication systems are considered critical within projects, it's great to see that for the most part, that the attendees who answered are implementing that at the early design stage, or even just after that with safety and risk analysis. And then, what drives the decision to include a critical communication system in a project is very evenly split between integration, end user specification, past incident, and regulatory requirements as well. So some interesting responses there, and I'm sure that Sri and Rahul will be able to take something away from that. So Rahul, I think over to you now for the third segment of this webinar.
Yeah, thank you, Sri, for taking us through a great deal of information on critical communication, the OT systems, IT, and the cyber threats we face today. Next, I'll be diving more into how Zenitel products comply with cybersecurity framework, that is the IEC 62443 requirements, latest legalizations, and standard requirements in life safety, mandating cybersecurity requirements. That is how certain life safety design requirements that we comply with in today's date are requesting cybersecurity compliances, and our experience as Zenitel in this field. As Sri has rightly said, these 2 segregations are the main part that you need to know first. In the past, operational technology, that is the OT, has far been concerned only with the physical security at site, and most of these being analog in nature, so were the interfaces between them. And with the advent of Internet of Things, or IoT as you term it as today, this has changed and digitization has taken forefront. Digitization of interfaces has eased the control implementation, of course, but increased vulnerability of these systems. It is a myth that OT cybersecurity is not a requirement. Today, more than ever, with the integration of OT with enterprise solutions like AI, cloud management, system integrations over IP, the surface of attack or vulnerability has increased. Cybersecurity equation for today's world is IT plus OT. So it is a combination of both these systems with cybersecurity measures that provides a complete cybersecure profile for a critical communication, for any critical communication in that matter. So at Zenitel, we do understand the need and the risk comes with digitization and IT connectivity. And with our products, we provide the client with a multi-facet cybersecurity blanket on our devices. And it is said, and as it is said, cybersecurity doesn't start and end with the products. It is a holistic approach that we look into through IEC as well as the ISO requirements for cybersecurity, which starts right from the organizational level. So here is the first part of the entire collective responsibility when we talk of in regards to cybersecurity. So as Sri had mentioned it earlier, it's the IT and OT that comes together. On the organizational level, Zenitel as a company is ISO 27001 certified. The certification is a framework in which the company needs to have IT compliance to safeguard the data in its ERP systems, websites. It also emphasizes on continued cybersecurity trainings and awareness for staff on phishing attacks, spoofing, man in the middle, etc. In short, cybersecurity is deeply embedded in our corporate strategy, which gives the client or the customer a peace of mind. The next three levels that we'll be looking into are part of the IEC 62443 framework. So what are these? So it starts with the secure development lifecycle, that is for the products. So how is this done? It includes a risk-based assessment for the product lifecycle support, patch management, rigorous testing before the release, that is penetration test on the software itself, and continued competence development of the developers within the R&D group. Moreover, Zenitel as a company is a member of CIS Group. CIS Group is an American-based entity which provides us access with the latest trends, or as you can term rather threats in cybersecurity landscape, and thereby allowing us to get ready to face this threat with our products. The second one is the product level capabilities, which again is an IEC requirement, and as they term in IEC, it is called defense in depth, DID. So there are certain few new terms that you all will be coming and you all will be facing in the future when cybersecurity is concerned. There will be defense in depth, there is ROT, that is root of trust, and certain other product layers as well. So on the product level capabilities, IEC 62443 is the framework which defines defense in depth scenario, and this includes multi-layered protection within the device. And then last but not the least, with the system level capabilities, that is the integration with third-party systems like IoT devices and also the cloud, how this is protected from cyber threats, and how authentication and authorization of these integrations are also important. Due to the time restraint of this webinar, I'll be delving into the third point, which is the product level capabilities, which are a must to comply with IEC 62443 and how Zenitel does that. So Zenitel has incorporated a multi-layered DID approach, defense in depth approach, which is the very basis of IEC 62443 requirements for OT cybersecurity. DID stands for defense in depth in cybersecurity and is a cyber security strategy. The defense in depth strategy applies multi-layered defense on the product, and this is a requirement of IEC 62443 standard for OT cybersecurity. Why do I emphasize more on IEC 62443? Because this is a globally recognized standard which is being followed, which is to be followed by any manufacturer to comply with the cybersecurity requirements of today's world. It originates from from its predecessor, which is the ISA 62443, which is a US-based. It stands for International Standard for Automation. So the main idea, the product should have multi-layer protection from cyber threat. Even if one layer is compromised, the system should still be able to resist the breach and the other layers of protection and notify the customer of the breach. Attack could come via breaching of authentication, network ports, or in other terms, it is like a fortress for the system. So as Sri had explained and shown you on the videos, there are multiple ways a system can be hacked and can be blocked. Denial of access is one such grave problem that we face in today's world. Let us look at each of these layers in short. So the topmost layer, we call it the network access layer. This is the outermost physical port layer of the devices. So how does Zenitel support physical or network access limitation? Is by disabling unused ports. So the device has the functionality to disable any unused port and active monitoring of others. That is monitoring all the other ports for any malicious activity. Enrollment of the device in the network. The system itself keeps a register of devices that it is talking to on the network. For example, if you have multiple distributed racks, each of the MAC addresses are stored in each of the devices, by which it enrolls all the devices on the network. And any unknown device that tries to connect into it is detected as a breach and notified to the operator. And that is what reporting any inconsistency means. So the log for this is supported on the system itself. The next layer is the second layer, that is called authentication. So here it verifies the user and the operator. So authentication, as everyone knows, each and every user of a system has a particular authentication that includes the password and a username. However, in compliance with IEC 62443, there are 3 layers of authentication that we support. The first one is the PIN. The second one is the site password, which is a alphanumeric password. And then you have 2-factor authentication that is using a time-based one-time password. This could be either using Microsoft Authenticator or a Google Authenticator. In addition to this, any third-party integration is authenticated for each connection request. That could be the SCADA system or could be a cloud system that we are sending the logs to, and so on and so forth. And also for any remote management, HMIs, that is a human machine interface, or the graphic user interface that we term in today's world. The next inner layer is authorization. These are the 2 parts which we need to make a clear difference on. The main difference between authentication and authorization. So authentication, as we previously saw, is to check the credentials of the user to have access into the system. And authorization is checking what all the user can access. Each user is linked with a set of user activities. For example, in an oil and gas field, the operator will be able to check the logs, and the maintainer might be able to check the logs as well. However, it's only the operator's authorization that allows him to trigger an evacuation message or a safety related message at a site. So each user is linked to a set of user activities and what he can see and what he can do. The next level includes the encryption. So all these confidential data related to authorization as well as authentication are stored and encrypted. Data at rest and transit are encrypted. So there is encryption for any communication on the network that is transmitted from the distributed rack system or between the servers. And this is achieved by using strong key cryptography technologies. So this is one of the main layers of data protection or confidentiality that is used. And the innermost layer, last but not the least, in cybersecurity, root of trust and secure boot are foundational technologies that help ensure the integrity and trustworthiness of a computing system. They play a critical role in protecting devices from attacks. such as firmware tampering or malware injection before operating system loads. So how does Zenitel thwart these cyber threats? We use signed software and secure bootloaders are used to enable this, and key updates requires on-site authentication. As you saw, there are 3 levels or multi-factor authentications that are required for any access or change in firmwares. That includes the PIN, the password, and the two-factor using Microsoft Authenticator or Google Authenticator. How can this affect your system? So if there is an attack, what affects the system and what is the example of an attack? So denial of service, as I spoke to you about, is one such example. Without these features in your PA system, there can be cyber attacks that can corrupt the firmware and stop the operator from using the system in case of a disaster. Just for an example, during an oil leak in an oil plant, communicating this disaster to the plant area is of utmost important. And just think if there is a cyber attack and the operator is denied from the service. It is a massive risk that you need to take. And this is why cybersecurity is of utmost importance in today's world. And Zenitel has taken this as the foremost and built it into the system's DNA. So all these layers together provides a secure communication system for a critical infrastructure. And Zenitel deploys a defense in depth, multi-layered approach to protect itself from outside cybersecurity threat, as it is called cybersecurity terms, DID, defense in depth. Why this is necessary? The first thing is legalization. Legalization is required in compliance to IEC 6244 for the product side, and a multi-layer protection. Even if one layer is compromised, the other layers still protect the authenticity of the system. Overall, the final aim is to be a strong cyber defense, not just on the product, but as a package with a future-proof approach to OT cybersecurity. At Zenitel, we work with system specifiers and clients to reduce cyber risk, ensure regulatory compliance, and deliver high assurance communication systems that are trusted by customers in the most demanding environments. So products nowadays do not live in their silos. Each product is integrated with a third-party system, maybe a cloud or could be a SCADA system in any particular location. So it's a holistic approach, and Zenitel provides the client with a peace of mind on the cybersecurity part when they are using Zenitel products. It is with pride we say that we are the first voice alarm manufacturers to be compliant with IEC 62442 and security level 2. And we have recently started seeing a good shift in market dynamics and specifiers recommending cybersecurity compliance in the OT technology in the Middle East market, especially in the Middle East market. And as our company motto has been, hear, be heard, and be understood. And now we do so cyber securely. That is in compliance with the global standards, that is the IEC. And of course, some of you might be rightly thinking that OT cybersecurity, is this a standard requirement? Do life safety standards recommend this? Do the standards mandate this? Why should I use cybersecurity? The answer is yes, of course they do. This is a snip from the latest NFPA 72, which is the 2025 release, and it clearly states that any network connected life safety device needs to be IEC compliant, as you can clearly state or see in this particular section where it clearly mentioned the component should be IEC 62443-2 compliant. So standards have been updated. It's more of the specification and the clients that need to put forth this requirement as one of the main requirements when it comes to critical infra for protecting their systems. And this is just a screenshot from the recent dynamics as I was speaking. So we have seen recent tender designs follow suit and indicate cybersecurity requirements in their tender specification. This is one such critical infra project wherein we have seen such a development and requirement. And when we have conversations with multiple consultants, we do see OT cybersecurity being the main topic of discussion. Previously, if you were one in millions talking about cybersecurity, now this has reduced to one in thousands. The dynamics has totally changed. Cybersecurity resilience requirements and awareness has spread vastly and on a great deal with people really understanding the importance of this scope. So today more than ever, especially in the Middle East with ever rising requirements for cloud connectivity, AI integration, etc., cybersecurity has really taken front seat. With a proven 30-year understanding of PAVA design and deployment, we work with system specifiers to understand and combat challenges for the growing need of cybersecurity in OT spaces. And with our expertise in implementing cyber secure communication solutions, we are able to support our customers, the consultants, clients to deliver a future-proof cyber secured communication solutions for mission critical infrastructure, all in compliance with world recognized standards. And that's more of it. Over to Sri as he will take you through the future of cybersecurity landscapes. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Rahul. Probably not a better person within Zenitel to take us through the sort of technical specs about the products and what makes them so unique. So thank you for that. And I can see that Sri has been answering some questions from the audience that have been coming in on the cybersecurity side of things there. So I think this is a really good opportunity to move into the second poll now. Okay, so we can see first of all that the majority who answered C, unauthorized access and hacking attempts as one of the new greater risks around IP and digital networks. And I think that's definitely something that Rahul touched upon and Sri touched upon before. How often do cybersecurity topics come up in your discussions around intercom or PAVA systems? Occasionally. So it's good to see that those discussions are coming up, particularly in high security projects. And I'm sure that as the challenges and the risks continue to evolve, that these conversations will become more prevalent. And finally, who should take primary responsibility for cybersecurity? Almost everyone answered that that should be a shared responsibility across all stakeholders. So thank you once again to the audience for that. And Sri, I think I've got to hand over to yourself for the end of the presentation, or the last segment at least.
Yes, thank you very much, Ryan. Thanks for the interesting information, Rahul. So we will go to the last section of this webinar. So we'll look at some of the future of cybersecurity, at least from Zenitel perspective. One of the key trends within this industry is the adaptation or adoption of cloud for various reasons. This could be for as simple as storing the data, customer data, or maybe storing the data such as video recording, audio recording, and so on. We also see that the system security system owners, they want to monitor and manage their security products remotely as well. So cloud being an important vehicle in allowing them to remotely manage all of their security assets, such as video cameras, as well as intercoms and whatnot. And as you see on the screen, the industry predicts that cloud-based physical security market is going to grow almost twice the pace than the traditional physical security market. Just for the context, the traditional physical security market has an annual growth rate close to 9%, whereas the cloud-based physical security market is actually 18%. Of course, while move to cloud is inevitable, from a cybersecurity point of view, it also brings some additional challenges. Some of them are, of course, obvious. When you move your system to the cloud, almost the traditional security parameters disappears. It's no longer your property is the parameter, but it's the data warehouse which is hosted somewhere on other side of the world. So your data or applications, they are no longer confined to your local network, but they are distributed across remote servers, and most of the time you don't know where they are hosted. So this introduces a new attack surface for cyber threats. because you don't know where your properties are, so you don't have the control over what you store on the cloud either. One of the things to highlight also, since most cloud deployment are dependent on third-party infrastructure providers such as Amazon, Google, or Microsoft for that matter. Cybersecurity has also become a shared responsibility between the security system owners who own the physical products such as cameras or intercoms or voice alarm system, and the cloud infrastructure providers such as Amazon or players like them. So what we are going to see, or what we are hoping to see at least, there will be a shared responsibility model. There will be a shared responsibility model that's going to divide the security responsibility between the cloud infrastructure owners as well as security system owners. Because we rely on each other. We rely on each other. So we rely on them for the cloud infrastructure, and our devices get connected to the cloud infrastructure. So this is going to be a shared responsibility model. The other one, the physical security market still heavily relies on manual labors. And in fact, almost 80% of the security spending is still spent on the manual labors. But what we will start to see with the cloud adaptation, we are going to also start to see a widespread adaptation or adoption of AI technologies. With high adoption of AI-related technologies, we will see a more efficient security operations. For example, there will be a lot of IoT sensors, so Internet of Sensors, such as microphones or 3D scanners or whatnot. They're going to feed data to the security system. And with that information, the security system will be able to take smarter decisions for the security system owners. This, in fact, will help them to reduce some of the spendings that they have currently on the human labors. Of course, the downside of this trend is of course, there's a privacy concerns. You have privacy concern, especially with the generative AI, the privacy concern has escalated. While there are regulations like GDPR, for example, at least in EU region, GDPR, which covers the traditional data privacy well, we will expect to see these privacy standard continue to evolve to include AI-specific privacy frameworks as well. So I call it data privacy is what we are focusing through GDPR and similar standard, but going forward, we are going to see more AI privacy laws, which will be incorporated into the existing laws and legislations. Talking about legislation and standards, we will see that the cybersecurity regulations, at least try to keep up with the pace of the innovations, which hasn't been the case so far. Especially if you look at GDPR as an example, that for most security system owners and most manufacturers is really limit the advancement of AI technologies. But we will see in the future, the legislators, at least in the EU region, they will try to catch up with the pace of the innovation. So as you see on the screen, EU Cyber Resilience Act is one of the most significant upcoming regulations in this space. So with this one, again, it's going to be a collective responsibility for making sure the security products are cyber secure. But with Cyber Resilience Act, manufacturers like ourselves will take a larger responsibility than what we currently have. So according to EU Cyber Resilience Act, we manufacturers will have to take responsibility for the cybersecurity management of the products throughout their whole product life cycle. The legislations are already in place. the cybersecurity requirements are already in place, but this act will be enforced from December 2027. After that period, if there are products in EU which do not comply to the cybersecurity requirements, then they will have to pay heavy penalties, at least here in Europe. We expect to see a similar movement in your region as well. I'm pretty sure that some form of the Cyber Resilience Act will also be in place going forward in the Middle Eastern region as well. So with that being said, I would like to thank you for joining the session. But more importantly, you'll have to be, you have a better understanding on what is coming in the near future, especially in the cybersecurity world with Cyber Resilience Act. So one piece of advice from us actually to be ahead of the game. So, rather than thinking, okay, I can do it later, you could be the early starter when it comes to this implementing some of the cybersecurity practices and processes. So consider working with players like Zenitel, where we are ahead of game. We have been working on the cybersecurity compliance for a long time, and we have training programs which really focus on the cybersecurity as well as the products speak to themselves as well. So consider working with a company like Zenitel. So if you want to know more about Zenitel product offerings and more specifically cybersecurity offerings, please feel free to visit our website. You see on the screen. We can also probably Ryan will send you this link as well. So feel free to read up on our website as well. With that, thank you very much. Over to you, Ryan.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sri and Rahul, for the comprehensive breakdown and presentation. And I've seen lots of questions coming in and messages in the chat box. So we'll review them at the end. I think we have one more poll to launch for the audience. So I'm just going to put that out there. And what we're trying to understand from this poll is we want to assess how ready the audience members are and their organizations are for the emerging cybersecurity standards that you touched upon just there. So that poll is live. Once again, 3 questions. First of all, we can see that for the majority, there is confidence that current or recent projects meet cybersecurity expectations, but some of the audience are still learning about those expectations. And I'm sure that joining webinars like this with leaders like Zenitel can be very beneficial to help that education. How much weight does cybersecurity carry when selecting or recommending a communication system? Once again, it's great to see that in all cases there, the cybersecurity side of things is directly impacting the selection or recommendation of a communication system. And then sort of as expected there with the EU Cyber Resilience Act that Sri was just talking to us about, most people are aware and learning and preparing for this legislation, but only one person who answered that is already fully compliant. So there's still a lot of adaptation to go there and understanding of that Cyber Resilience Act. So thank you for everyone for submitting your answers to that. And like I said, I can see that we've had a few questions coming in during the session. We did have one asked beforehand, so I'd like to go to that one first. It was from Dr. Hani Hashim, who wanted to ask, and Sri Rahul, it's up to you who answers this, but in what way does Zenitel's unified critical communication solution integrate with existing safety and operational systems to ensure seamless, intelligent communication during emergencies?
So I will just pick up that question. So basically, Zenitel's unified critical communication supports both low-level integrations as well as high-level integrations to fit different system needs, of course. So the low-level integrations actually include hardware dry contacts, relays, and GPIO contacts with fire alarm systems. For example, the interface with existing fire alarm systems or input feeds from the existing PA system. So those would be local line level inputs. On a higher level integration, we could use always the Dante protocol, which is an open audio protocol, which we comply with. Of course, Dante, as Dante cannot be used, it needs to have a DDM, that is Dante Domain Manager, which makes it more secure and compliant to IEC requirements in terms of security with encryptions and stuff. So that is one thing. And of course, we have APIs that could integrate using SIP and OPCs. We use special connectivity as Zenitel Link. So Zenitel Link use authentication and authorization, all those hierarchical communication protocols, which allows for a secure communication between third-party systems as well, or integrating with third-party systems. So this is how basically, and we already have standard integrations built in with multiple VMS systems and PSIN protocol, PSIN manufacturers or suppliers. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Rahul, and I hope that answers your question. We've had another one come in from Nidal, who, again, I think this might be one for you, Rahul. How do you balance the need for rapid communication in mission critical systems with the imperative of maintaining robust cybersecurity measures?
Well, to make that sure, so compliance with IEC is the first and foremost thing. And when you talk about cybersecurity on the OT platform, availability is always on the top priority. So as Sri had clearly mentioned, availability of the system is the top priority on the OT cybersecurity systems. So securely transmitting audio without any delays is what OT cybersecurity focuses on. So yeah, I think that answers most.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, gents, we're pretty much out of time, but I think we've probably got enough time for one more question, which I've seen come in, and I think it's from an existing customer. So how can we ensure that our existing Zenitel PAVA systems are upgraded to meet the latest cybersecurity standards?
So I will take this one up as well, Sri. So basically, when we introduce cybersecurity, we look into the backward compatibility as well as the future compatibility of the products. So there is no need for purchasing a separate equipment or unit for this. It's only the firmware updation that will provide you with a cyber secure Wikipedia system or Zenitel PAVA system that is to be used. So in terms of legacy systems, you can always upgrade it with our latest V5 version, which provides the cybersecurity compliance in line with IEC requirements. Yep.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Rahul, for the comprehensive answers, and thanks to you and Sri once again for the presentation. To all of the audience who have tuned in at home, thank you very much for your time. Taking an hour out of your day to join us is greatly appreciated. I will share the slide deck and the edited version of the webinar later this week, and also introduce all of the audience to Rahul and Sri so that you can ask your questions and follow up with the gentleman directly to continue the conversation. So thanks everyone, and have a lovely afternoon ahead, and we'll see you at the next Security Middle East webinar.